Good, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us today. And I'm happy to see that quite a number are on the call. We're already 38, and I anticipate as we go along that more will be joining. I want to thank you so much for keeping on joining us week after week. If you're new here, I welcome you also. Thank you for joining us. Now, before we start today's presentation, I just want to say shortly, just three reminders. Number one is that these Zoom meetings, while they are exciting, while they are interactive, they are not a substitute for going through the material so that you can look at the material that is in your course and earn your badges as you go along. And also from the material, that is where you learn. These Zoom meetings are just meant to like arouse your curiosity, introduce some basic concepts and have a short discussion. But the real essence of what you're learning is in the course material. So please go through it and make sure that if there are any issues, then you can raise them on the WhatsApp group. You can raise them. If you find something interesting, put it on the discussion forum so that everybody else can share. Which brings me to my second point, which is that please participate in the discussion forums. For each module, there is a discussion forum. Participate in those discussions. Post something that is from your own experience as an adult. We have so many things that we know about the content already. Post something interesting. Reply to other people's posts. Keep the discussion going along. When there is, you can move this discussion also into the WhatsApp. If you have something interesting to share, share it there and invite comments from other people. This is what makes the course interesting. Otherwise, when each of us is alone working on the course and there is no support from somebody else, sometimes it can be a little bit lonesome. It's good when you participate in the WhatsApp group in discussions so that you're able to work with others. And my third point is that some of us need to go through the orientation handbook again. I want to encourage you, even if you have already gone through the orientation handbook, if there is a query or if there is an issue that you're having with that course, first go back into the orientation handbook and go into the introduction to Zoom module. You'll find that many of your questions are answered right there and then. And of course, we are always here to help. Anything that is on technical, please contact Sandy Hertz. Again, if you're new to the course, make sure that you have gone through the orientation handbook and the Zoom introduction to Zoom. But all of us can benefit from once in a while just going back and seeing, is there something I'm having difficulty with, but I missed from the orientation? So once again, thank you very much. Welcome to this session, people. And today we're going to be looking at understanding power for social change. This is our webinar series number 3 out of 8. So we still have quite a way to go, and it's exciting each time to be able to present something. For me, this is what helps me to interact with the course. Otherwise, I don't get to really meet anybody and talk to them about this course, which I'm very excited about. So we are looking at understanding power for social change. And our most important concepts for today is the concept of power and the concept of change. So those two ideas of what is power and what is change, how does power influence or how does power interact with social change? When we think about the normal or usual way in which we talk about power, we are talking about usually, if we think somebody who has power, we think of somebody who is able to do certain things. And so in terms of looking at power, this is the way in which somebody has a capacity or an authority or an ability to direct or influence the behavior of others or change the course of events. Something may be happening. There may be certain behavior that people are exhibiting, and somebody with power or authority is able to change the way in which they are doing it. I want us all to think about when we were in school. When you were in school and a teacher shouted, "Stop running." You were running and the teacher shouted, "Stop running." You will stop running. because that teacher has power or authority to tell you what to do. And that means that they're directly influencing your behavior. When your people are making noise in class and the teacher says, stop making noise, immediately everybody keeps quiet, because this is the way in which they are accustomed to doing things. This person has authority over them and they obey that person. We can also take the example of school. For example, maybe you expected it to be a geography lesson and the maths teacher comes in. You already have your geography books, you're ready for the geography teacher. And the maths teacher comes in and tells you, we are doing mathematics. Immediately you change what you are doing because that person has the authority or the power to be able to change the way in which you are doing things. And so when we look at power, I want us to think about three important things. Number one is that power is neutral. Many times power is thought of as something that is an authority and something that can lead to punishment. But power in itself is neutral. What does this mean? It means that power can be for good or power can be for bad. In terms of it, that this thing which we call power is not necessarily good or bad. It is the way in which it is perceived. In other words, how do people see power? Do I see power? I have power. Do I see it as something I'm going to use for the good of others, or do I see it as something that I'm going to use to punish others, to make their lives more difficult, to deny them certain privileges? And when I am exercising power, what is it that I am thinking towards the people that I am having power over? In the same way, if I am interacting with somebody who has power, I am in the presence of somebody I believe has power, it means that it is me who is seeing them as powerful. So it is the amount of power that they have over me is my perception of that power. Now, power is a little bit different from authority. And sometimes authority is given because somebody has a certain position. As a president of a country, for example, I have such wide authority that there is so much I can do with that authority because I am the president. As a human being, I may be the president, but I'm not very powerful in many circles. But because I have that authority of a president, I have the laws of the country behind me, I have the military behind me, I have the cabinet and the parliament behind me. It gives me a lot of authority. So when people look at me as a president, they see this power that I have, but it is the power that I have because of my office. Maybe when I go home, I don't have much power. I don't have much say in anything. But when I am sitting or I am chairing a cabinet meeting, as a president, I have that authority. So power and authority are things that are seen in people who have the power. And the extent to which we see that they have power depends on how we think and how we see them. But again, power is universal. What does this mean? It means that everybody has power. Now let's think about this for a minute. In many instances, when we are looking at people and we're saying that I am of a higher social class or of a higher office or I have certain authority, then I am the one who always has power. No, that is not true. Everybody has power. It is just where is this power exercised? Where is this power more and where is this power less? If we look at our societies, there are situations in which men have power. Culturally, I'm talking about culturally. There are situations in which men have power. And there are also cultural situations in which women have power, where women have the say, where men have the say. So power is not something that is only in some people, but power is universal, meaning that we have power in certain situations. We may not have power in other situations. And so therefore, power can be expressed as it is, everybody has it, but not everybody is able to exercise it at all times. Now, therefore, when we talk about I am able to have power, I have some power in me in certain situations. I am sometimes able to express it. It means that sometimes I'm powerful, sometimes I'm not so powerful. What is this? It is called power dynamics. And power dynamics is that relationship between people and organizations, between people themselves, that is, and between people and their organizations, or between organizations, and how that authority is distributed or it is expressed, and therefore how it affects people's behavior. Now, power dynamics between people. For example, if you have a parent and a child, the power dynamics between that parent and the child is that usually the parent is exercising authority over the child. They are making sure that this child is fed, this child can go to school, this child has everything that they need. But they are also shaping this child's behavior and saying that you're not going to go out at night when it is dangerous. You're telling a small child, if they're headed towards a fire, you're going to pull them back because you have that power over them. And so that power dynamic is between a parent and a child. Between spouses, there is a power dynamic. Between men and women, there is a power dynamic. Between us and organizations, there is a power dynamic. When I go to the police station, I want to go and report a crime. Somebody has done something to me. I recognize the power and authority of the police to be able to help me in my situation. When I go to a hospital for healthcare, I recognize the power and authority of the doctors to tell me what to do in order to get better. So how is this distributed? How is it expressed? It means that if I go to the police, for example, I wanted to report that I was sexually assaulted, and the police deal with me in a very good manner. They help me to get my evidence together. They tell me the next steps to take and so on. I will perceive in my mind that they as a power are there for my good. But if I am treated the way a lot of people are treated, you're treated very roughly, you're asked what you are wearing, you're subjected to so much inhumanity, then my perception is that these people are not using their power for good. And it is true that they are abusing the power that they have to do good in order to make my life worse. So power relations and the way in which we express them is between people or between people and organizations. Let's move to the next slide. So then we've said that power is that authority or that thing that is within us to be able to exert influence. But how do we show power? How do we express it? What are some of the ways in which power can be seen in people? Now you're going to see this diagram a little bit more and a little bit more explanation in your module. So I'll just go through it a little bit. Now we can have power over people. And this power over people is what we typically see, where somebody has that authority, that force, that influence, and they exercise it as power over in a very one-way relationship. I am the powerful one, you're not the powerful one, and so you have to listen to me. And I'm going to do everything in my ability to make sure that I retain that power. And this kind of power that people have over others is what leads to discrimination, is what tries to limit the development of other people. Secondly, we can have power to do something. This is called power to. And it recognizes that everybody has power within them and that therefore they have the potential to make change. It means that people can do something about their situations. They can, for example, the example that is given here is that a person refused to work under unsafe conditions. A group organizes a strike for a fair wage. We are not going to work in this kind of situation where it is unhealthy. Maybe there is toxic fumes coming from whatever we are manufacturing, or there is no safety equipment that we are wearing. So we are going to demand that we are given safe working conditions. That is the power to make change. An individual who has power over, a politician, for example, who has power over constituents, also has the power to make change. And many of them do make changes that benefit their people. They lobby with authorities for laws that will make the lives of their people better. They lobby for water, for hospitals, for schools, for their people. This is the power to make change. Then we talk about power with. And when we are talking about power, we're talking about collaboration, supporting each other, ensuring that I have some power, you have some power. Together, can we work with each other in order to make change? So you work with other people rather than taking the power for yourself, but you say, this is a collaboration. Now, power within, we're going to look at it a little bit more, but power within is a person's belief in themselves to imagine that they can actually make change happen. And power for is something that impacts our world. It helps us to do things for others. I may have power. I don't want to use it for myself. I want to use it to make a difference for others. Kindly look at this diagram in your module. Go through it, go through the notes that are under it. You will understand a little bit better. Within the time that we have, we cannot necessarily go very deep into it. Now, why is it that we are studying power and power dynamics? What does it matter? Why is it important to us? Why is it important for women's empowerment? This is what we're going to look at over the next few slides. Why is the study of power and power dynamics important for women's empowerment? Now, one of the things that we need to talk about is how gender shapes power. First of all, statistics tell us that gender divides power. Women, for example, make up 40% of all employed people, but only 28% of management. It means that almost half of the people who are in work are women. But when you come to senior management, then it means that only 28% of the people who are in management are women. Why is this important? Now, when we are brought up, remember the idea of socialization. When we are brought up and we are taught how to think like a man, how to think like a woman, it shapes our worldview and the things that we see. And therefore, if as a man, I am in management, there are things I am simply not able to see from a woman's point of view. And so I may make decisions based on the power that I have. I may make decisions that may not be favorable to women because my worldview is strictly that of a man. So the decisions I am making, they're not made out of malice, they're not made out of wrong thinking, they're not meant to discriminate, but it is because of my socialization. I may not understand certain things. I'll give you an example, very simple example. If you have work that is maybe supposed to begin at 8 a.m. and end at 5 p.m., but because of the work that is being done, maybe it is going beyond 5 p.m., it's going to 6:30 p.m. This is an organization. And the company says that, okay, people are going to work because there is a lot of work. You're going to have to work until 6:30. At 6:30 p.m., it is already maybe getting dark in many places of the world. It's already getting dark. This woman who is thinking about going home using public transport is thinking, is it dark? Is it safe enough for me? Is it okay? The men will not be thinking in that way because for them, they may not be thinking about safety issues. But when men start to understand that for women, safety is always an issue, then they may make different decisions and say that if we have to have something important that is happening within the organization, we will make sure that by 5 o'clock it is finished. And what we are doing between 5 to 6:30, it is okay even if you are not present. Or we can allow you to go home and join us on a Zoom meeting. That way, then, the perspectives of both men and women are met by the exercise of power. So gender divides power, but that power that is divided is because there is an inequitable distribution of women in management positions. Now, the second one is that gender shapes intersectional inequalities or equalities. Now, where there are gaps in inequalities, the SDGs have pointed out to us that we need to have no poverty, we need to have gender equality, we need to have education for all, we need to have fair jobs. Now, when you look at the educational attainment gender gaps, we have closed these gaps by 94%. It means that there is still only a 6% gap between men and women or between girls and boys in educational attainment. So all over the world, boys and girls are going into school. They are learning, they are finishing, they are learning the basic education, which is normally counted as the end of secondary or high school. But by closing the educational attainment gaps, we have also closed the health and survival gender gaps by 96%. What do these figures tell us? The more educated women and men are, the more healthy and the higher their survival rates. When we had bigger gender gaps, if you go back into history, look at the gender gaps, you will find that the bigger the gender gap in attainment of education, then the bigger also the gender gap in health and survival. So by closing these gaps, by meeting these inequalities in one area, we are meeting them in another area. And this is what we call intersectionality. We are not just one thing. I am a woman, I am a mother, I am a person working in an organization, I have friends, I have health issues, I am a certain race or certain ethnicity. Maybe I belong to a certain group or religion or culture. All of these things interact with who we are. And so when we are able to say that we can close gaps in one area, and then it means that it spills over into another area. The more we close gaps in education, in health, in survival, for example, the better our economies become for both men and women. Now, thirdly, we say that gender shapes institutions. Now, here we have to acknowledge that most political and economic power is patriarchal. It means that it is based on a masculine ideal. It means that it is tailored to men's experiences. What does this mean? If you look at societies, most societies in the world are patriarchal, meaning that it is men who are the head of the family, and the name that is passed down from one person to the other is the male name. So this is what we mean by patriarchal. But patriarchal also means that the idea of masculinity is what is set as the standard. You must be strong. You must be assertive. You must be a go-getter. Now, almost all institutions that are then led with this pattern means that they are tailored to men's experiences, and women are expected to fit into those experiences. So that if patriarchy is talking about women having less power, and that men have power over, then it means that this continues even in the institutions we work in, so that women are expected to be subordinate, even when they are sometimes of the same level in an organization. And then fourthly, we want to say that gender relations are power relations. The roles that are expected for women can increase conflict and violence. That when we talk about gender relations between men and women, and these gender dynamics start to change a little bit, sometimes it can lead to conflict and it can lead to violence. As women become more empowered, men must also become more empowered. And so while the focus of the Sustainable Development Goals, most of the focus is on ensuring that women's lives are uplifted. That is why not all the Sustainable Development Goals are about women. They are about ensuring that there is equality in society and justice in society. Empowerment is not just for women. The more you open up women's lives and change the power dynamics, then also the more that men's lives must also change. So far we have talked about power. And we have talked about power as being this thing that is universal, that is something that is a perception, and that people can have power over others, others can have less power. But I want us to remember also that we said that power changes. Sometimes you have power, sometimes you don't have power. Now, the concept then of power, that is something that is universal and outside of all of us, we need to look at it in terms of something that is within us. And this is what we call empowerment. And I have just mentioned that when we have women becoming more powerful or more empowered or more enlightened, then it is also something that needs to happen also to men. Empowerment is a concept that is especially important for women because of historical subordination, because of historical ways in which they are discriminated against. But empowerment can be of different ways. And as we go through the modules, we're going to see how this can be done. That empowerment is not just a woman's thing, but empowerment takes on different shapes. In this course, we are focusing on women's empowerment. And as I said, it is because typically women are subordinated and are in positions of less power. So what is empowerment? Empowerment is the process of increasing the capacity of individuals or groups to make choices and transform those choices into desired outcomes. In the modules, you will see different ways in which we have defined empowerment. It depends very much on which organization has defined it. And I love the World Bank's definition of empowerment, because they are talking about a process where you go through and make choices, and those choices that you make lead into desired actions. Why I like this is that because it goes very closely with the definition we talked about of power. That power is something that has the power to influence decisions, to change the course of actions, or to change the course of events. And so with empowerment, people have that capability to change, to make choices and make these choices into desired actions and outcomes. So let's look at empowerment and ask ourselves, what are these three things? We have capability, plus agency, plus autonomy. Now, what is capability? Capability is opportunities that people have in order to be able to have good functioning. In society, there are certain things that you need in order to be able to function in that society. For example, you need an education. If you did not have an education, for example, you would not be participating in this course, because you would not be able to understand what we are talking about. We are speaking in a language that is not a first language for many of us. We had to go to school to learn. And so that education helps you then to function. It helps you to get a job. It helps you to be able to do certain things. If you are healthy, you also have a capability, because it's an opportunity then that you have to use this health and to use your body to be able to do certain things. Kindly mute yourself on entry. Thank you very much. So when you are also, when you have capability, remember we are saying that capability, we are talking about opportunity to do something. Now, capability is dependent on freedom. You have to be able to be free to do these things. Now, it means that when I have capability, I am able, for example, to complete my education. A person who does not have the capability to complete their education because they have been pushed out of school, maybe by becoming an adolescent mother, or because the schools are no longer open to them, like we said in the previous, in a previous webinar, I think last time. These that are restricted means that we do not have that opportunity to take advantage of them. It means that it reduces capability of that woman or girl to be able to participate. Kindly, I'm not sure which participant this is, but somebody is speaking. Soila, please mute yourself. Kindly allow me to call you out. Thank you. Then we have agency, the second thing that we call agency. And I'm sure if you're working in, especially in the NGOs, you've heard about this a lot, this word called agency, agency. What does it mean? Agency is an individual's capacity to act and make choices. So remember that the World Bank definition talks about the capacity of individuals or groups to make choices. This is what is referred to as agency. And it depends on an individual's perception of the power within. Remember, we have also just defined power within. It means that I know I have something inside me that can make a change. So the power within that I have to control my life is called agency. You may have met people in life who will always have somebody else to blame for everything that goes on in their lives. It means that they do not feel that they have power inside of themselves to do anything. I was late. Why were you late? Oh, it was because my child woke up late this morning. Oh, it was because I did this. Oh, because somebody else did this. Somebody else did this. But agency means that we act and make action on our own choices. So that when somebody asks me, why am I late? I am late because I was in a rush this morning. I did not wake up early enough to prepare my child to go to school. And so I am late for work. I take that responsibility because I know I have the power to shape my life. Now, agency leads people to taking action. For example, if I have agency, I would say, I'm going to vote for a politician that is going to make a difference in my life. I'm going to seek reproductive health information that will help me in order to be able to space my children. I'm going to try and find information about a certain career that I want to go into so that I know that I am doing the right thing. So agency is really something about saying, how is it that I feel that I have power to go and make choices? Now, when we look at the third one, autonomy, autonomy is very, very closely related to agency, but it specifically talks about self-governance and self-determination. What does that mean? It means that I myself feel that I have the ability to act independently based on my own values and beliefs. Now, in times that somebody has autonomy, it means that they can shape their own lives. Now, I'm going to give an example of when people do not have autonomy. For example, many women do not have bodily autonomy. What does this mean? They don't have choices over reproductive decisions, such as how many children they will have. Some women do not have autonomy over access to health services, especially contraception. They cannot go for contraception without the consent of their spouse. In some communities, a woman cannot access healthcare at all, completely, unless she's accompanied by her spouse, which means that if, for example, I'm in a community where women stay at home and men, maybe they go away to work and they go to the city or they go to the town to work, and maybe I am expecting a baby. When it comes time for me to deliver that baby, if I am not accompanied by my spouse and I cannot go to the hospital, there's a higher possibility that my child will not make it. I have to rely on the midwife that is within the community. But if it is a complication that the midwife cannot handle, it means that I am likely to lose my life or my child is likely to die. And so bodily autonomy means that I can make the decision. It is now time for me. My labor pains have started. I'm going to hospital. I can do that with or without the consent of my spouse. If I want to space my children and my spouse is not happy about it, and it's going to affect my care, my health, I can go to the hospital and say, look, I need to have this contraception. Women who do not have bodily autonomy cannot make these choices. In certain areas where public life is restricted, where a woman cannot even go to the shops to go and buy food for her family unless she's accompanied by a male member of that family, then it also restricts the social interaction that she can have. So bodily autonomy or autonomy to be able to make your decisions is based on your values and your beliefs. Now, I want to just pause here for a minute, and I want to pause my share. And I want to find out from you, just to ask a question where perhaps we can talk together, is that in our communities, we know that there are people with power. And I want to ask a question. How do those with power in the community maintain their power? How do they exert their influence in the community? So I'm going to stop that share first so that I can see the names. So I'm asking the question, how do people with power in your community exert their power and exert their influence? Remember, we have said that power is both good and bad. How do we have examples of this? Hello? Yes, I see a hand up. Yes, Mwarinda?
I can say
Mhm.
good power is when when you influence good positive change in the society. For example, our leaders, when they have power, but when you said they have power over, and they can also have power to. So power to influence change, good positive change. For example, in policies and things that will help us in the society.
Okay. Do you have an example of the way in which power has been done? Some person with power, whether it is a politician, a religious leader, any other person in your society, has made a positive change?
There are examples.
Could you give us one?
Do you mean a practical example?
Yes, I'm saying yes. Say that we had this problem and the person with power did ABCD. That's the kind of example we are looking for. That's how we learn from each other.
Okay.
Yes.
I remember there was, I can use in Kenya, we have or had Wangari Maathai, who influenced positive change on our environment when she was fighting for the forest not to be industrialized.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Marinda. Marinda is referring to the Nobel laureate Wangari Maathai, the late Wangari Maathai. I think a lot of people know her worldwide for her activism in trying to conserve the environment. She was not a political leader. She had no other position except that she was passionate about the environment and fought for it. So she fought for the good of to preserve the environment, to stop governments from taking over and turning forests into industrialized areas or residential areas. And that is power that she used positively for change. Yes, Thomas Moyo, do you have examples of power that is either positive or negative?
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm going to talk about still negative
Yes.
power influence. We have the traditional authorities, like in Malawi.
Yes.
These are like the custodians of Kasha. So what normally they do is, in order to perpetuate patriarchal values, they would want to keep women in ignorance so that they can not rise and talk about the issues affecting them. So even opportunities for empowerment, like starting up a small business, you would see women having challenges to access better markets for their businesses, just to make sure that the men have the upper hand. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much, Thomas Moyo. Faith?
Hello. Most of these people also, I feel they use intimidation. For example, if we talk of most parents, if they are exercising the power over the children, they intimidate them so that the children should feel they are inferior to the parents. But at the end of the day, they won't contribute anything to them because they'll feel they are inferior and they can't contribute. Another example is the way we work with policemen. So if you go and maybe you want to report a kind of abuse to the policemen, you find that the way they ask their questions, the interrogation part itself intimidates you, so that you end up not saying the truth about whatever happened because you fear whatever, however they're looking, however they're asking questions. So that fear makes a lot of people not to say what they really feel or what they really think about whatever situation that has happened. I would also talk of...
Faith, thank you very much. Let's give somebody else a chance. Thank you so much. Thank you, Faith. Thank you so much, Faith. Anthony?
Thank you very much. Quickly, in Malawi, I'm Anthony Nkubira from Malawi. In Malawi, we have seen a good example of Tie Kachindamoto. Tie Kachindamoto can strip off any village headman or group village headman who tolerate early marriages in his or her village. So if she found that any traditional leader has tolerated this practice in his or her village, that TA could strip off the leadership of that person. So that is a very good example of exerting influence and power over the people.
No, that's thank you very much. So the Otiot Kachindamoto, I hope I pronounced it correctly, are they government officials or?
Yes, TA's traditional leaders are part and parcel of the government.
Okay, thank you, Anthony. That's a great example of power being used for good, and especially because who was it? I think it was whoever spoke first and said that the traditional authorities have very, very strong power over the people in Malawi. And so therefore to find that there is a check and balance in that power, in that you have that traditional authority, but you cannot use it to whatever extent, and that some good is coming out of the changes that are being done. Thank you so much. George, let's hear you.
Thank you for acknowledging me. Sorry, I think what I wanted to talk was about the same TA Kachindamoto, as Anton has just said. So let it pass. Sure.
Thank you so much, George. Edna?
Thank you so much. For me, I have an example that just happened recently of a high school teacher who is a head teacher in that school, principal, who used her power to make sure a girl who's been defiled constantly with someone stayed in school and got a full scholarship from the board of management within the institution. They at first they had a little bit of back and forth, but using her power and using other influence and other stakeholders, she pushed towards having also accessing justice for that particular girl in school. Yeah, thank you.
Great. Thank you for that. That's really uplifting. Liz, let's hear from you.
I'd want to take a different approach, looking at institutional power. I'm looking at the media in this situation. For instance, in Kenya, if I look at state media and independent media, so people go for the ones that are authoritative, that are giving facts, that are challenging the government, and they're seen as more powerful than the state media.
Okay, thank you. So media using their power for good and giving people the facts. Thank you so much. Nancy?
Thank you very much. I would like to share, I'm a teacher by profession, and I would like to share a story that was shared to me by one of my students. What happened is this particular student belongs to the Kushaite community where the girls go through FGM. So we had learned in class the dangers of FGM. So this particular learner came back and told me, a girl told me, that about 5 of them did not go through the practice because the Kathi, kind of like a religious leader in the Islam religion, called all the men in a meeting and told them the dangers of FGM. So I think this is positive influence and it's good.
Great. Thank you. Thank you very much, Nancy. Blessing, Chika?
I would like.
Blessing, you have muted yourself. Blessing?
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. I would just like to share about what I read some time ago from one of the countries in West Africa. Sure, again, I think it is Ivory Coast or Togo, where there was a policy that was made by the government. And this policy was really a filth. So went on the streets in black and they told the government to reverse the policy. And they all agreed and made it publicly that from the government down to every other sector, even down to the homes, that their husbands are going to be denied of sex until that policy is reversed, just for the sake of their children. And that was done. So government had to succumb to that. So for me, it was a good power that they have used. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Blessing. Thank you, Blessing. And finally, we'll listen to Jessie. I know more of you have something to say, but for the sake of time, we'll listen to Jessie.
Thank you. I wanted to share something on a negative side to indicate that one of the most common abuses these days are abuse of power, sexually harassed women and girls when they are seeking in employment or where they are looking for maybe better benefits. That's an example that I wanted to give on abuse of power negatively. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Jessie. Thank you very much for these contributions. Now, the reason why we are looking at this and why I'm excited about the sharing is that sometimes that idea of power over is the one that comes to mind when we think about power. We think about somebody having that authority and usually abusing that authority. But through the discussion, you can see that there are instances in which people use their power and which they use their authority to do good, even when they don't necessarily have to, and even when it means going against certain practices. Like, for example, the example that has been given about the Qadi, or the imam in the mosque telling other men that you should not be forcing your girls to undergo FGM because these are the side effects. I want you to think about how difficult it must be for a religious leader who is the custodian of certain religious practices that are also bound up with culture. How difficult it must be for that person to reach a place where they have not only changed their own mindset, they have changed their perception, but they also now are using that power that they have and that influence that they have to go and tell the members of their community, you cannot do this anymore. It is hurting our girls. And so that ability to use power is not necessarily that this person had to do it. He could have been convinced of himself and said, well, I'm the imam, I'm not going to say anything about it. But he uses that agency. He uses that opportunity to then go and tell the people that he can exert power over, that this is something that needs to stop. And exercising our authority or exercising our power, we may not have power in every situation, but we can still say that with this kind of power that I have, there is something that I can do. There is something that I can change for the welfare of others. And I want to thank you so much for those who have contributed and hope that this is a discussion that can be continued even afterwards on our discussion forum and even on our WhatsApp. Now, some of the things that have been said in chat, because it's good to also acknowledge those who have written down. Annette says that when it comes to women with disabilities in deciding about family planning, it is worse. And I want to agree with Annette that sometimes when a person has a disability, then it is as though they do not have the capacity or the capability to make their own decisions. And so they may find it a little bit difficult. Sarah has said that power is exercised through intimidation and using money to influence others. Jessie has said that political influence. Then Abigail has said political leaders mostly use their power negatively. They take that advantage of sex for jobs. Money and political influence seems to be a recurring thread in the chat. We're talking about Sakaja is, sorry, Tiwonge, sorry, you will forgive me if I mispronounce your name. Sometimes this pronunciation is not something I'm familiar with. Sometimes use of coercion and intimidation, even instigating violence to remain control. However, they've had situations in order to enforce women to give birth at the hospital, our chief used his power to say that all women who will not use hospital services for childbirth will have to pay 2 goats. I see it as use of intimidation, but it worked for the good of women's maternal health. Thank you very much for that example. That's a classic example of somebody exerting power over that could be negative. And the chief's ultimate way is to say, you're going to pay 2 goats, and that is a huge fine if you do not go to the hospital. So we have seen that we are talking about when people have power, they are able to exert that power. They are able to use it for the good of others. And if they do that, then it means that they can make a change, whether within a small circle, whether within a larger circle. If a parent, the very first example we got was about parents. If parents exercise their power over their families for the good, then they end up with better families. They end up with families that are cohesive, where everybody is happy with that family. But if a parent uses their power to intimidate, to only punish, to only see the negative in their children, then those are children who will then not be empowered to have agency or will not be able to meet their full capability. So if we want to okay, so if we are looking at then power and gender and equality, we are saying that gender equality is fundamentally an issue of power. Because when there is an imbalance of power, and only one side always has the power, or most of the time has the power, because of our gender socialization, sometimes we are not able to see that gender inequality is because there is a power imbalance. It is because there is one person who has voice and another person who does not have voice. And when we say that it is only, most of the time, it is leaders who have voice, and most of those leaders are men. When we say that women are then denied voice because they are usually not in positions of power. When women are denied capability, that is the opportunity to make their lives better or to function in society, then they are not able to have also agency. If I don't have capability, if I don't have education or help, if I don't have bodily autonomy to make decisions or any ability to make certain decisions about my life and career, it means that I also lack the agency to make informed decisions and act on them. I may know what is good for me, but because I am denied these opportunities and I am denied the ability to go and make my own decisions, then I cannot do so. And this is a violation of the first fundamental human right, the right to life, the right to freedom. That is the first human right. So when a woman does not have bodily autonomy, when she does not have capability, when she does not therefore develop any agency, then she is being denied the very first and most basic of human rights. Recognizing how power impacts on individuals and society can lead to better approaches for transformative change. It is not always, and I love that, that's the reason why I love the examples that are given. It is not always that men are doing this against women, women are doing this against men, women don't have power. No, we have to realize that when we say something is dynamic, it changes, it keeps shifting. And so therefore, recognizing how this power impacts on people as individuals, that sometimes I'm up, sometimes I'm down, it means that it can lead to better approaches for transformative change. And so therefore, it is not a men versus women thing. And we need to be really careful about that, so that we are not always saying that men are the bad ones, men are the bad ones, men are the bad ones. The reason why sometimes it appears so is that when we talk about, for example, politicians, and you may be in a country where all the politicians are men, and maybe then the decisions they're making are not correct, then you say all these men politicians are doing a bad job, and then you stereotype all men into that. Now, we have to recognize that that dynamic of power can help us to lead to transformation. When men understand, when women understand what empowerment means, then they can make society better. So mapping who has power and how they use it will help development practitioners understand the dynamics of gender relations and use this to make better actions. Once we understand who has power, do they have power over us? How can we use this power with them so that we can be able to develop the society together? Then we can make change for the better. I want to thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. I want to thank you for your participation. I want to thank you for keeping on looking at this, attending these Zoom sessions. Remember that this recording will be available to you. And as usual, I want to leave you with an inspirational quote. This one is from the Dalai Lama. Why is my screen is pretending it doesn't like me? Can you see the quote that is on? The intelligent way to be selfish is to work for the welfare of others.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Okay, because it has frozen on my screen. It has frozen on the previous slide. So thank you so much. So the intelligent way to be selfish is to work for the welfare of others. This is from the Dalai Lama. It is one also of my favorite quotes. So each week, as I said, I keep sharing with you one of my favorite quotes and hope that they will inspire you to think a little bit deeper about the things that we have done. So when you have the power, when you can exert the power, work for the welfare of others. So thank you very, very much, ladies and gentlemen. That is the end of our program today, or our webinar today. You will receive the recording as soon as it is ready. Kindly go through it, and I hope that you will also go through the module this week. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you and bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.